Okay, so annotations part 4. So, if you're looking at annotations and you're thinking, okay, I've listened to all of these videos, I've listened to Miss Parasite's annoying voice for all this time and I still have no friggin' idea what I'm doing, this is now where you have to go. If it doesn't make sense for you to look at the examples, if you look at the examples and they just overwhelm you, I want you to listen to the key headings, right? So you may wish to, on your page, put a sample of your source. Now, I personally think that that is a waste of space, so I would not encourage you putting a piece of your source on your page anymore. What I would encourage you instead is to actually pull out some of the key quotes and then summarize that into your own words. And so you can see on the screen that the example here, this person has got the source and then they've summarized the key points into their own words, and then they have extracted the main thing they have learned. So if I was your teacher, I'd be telling you, do not worry about putting the source in, just put the bibliographic details in. Bibliographic details must be there. Put the important information in your summary, and then summarize that into your own key findings. At this point, you may wish to put some quotes as well and explain why they're important, but I'm going to show you another example that does that in a sec. Following that, you need a source analysis, and you need to talk about why this source is good, why this source is bad. Okay. Following that, you need to respond to ethics. Following that, you need to respond to capability. You need to show some planning and some questioning. Now, the last two, they're really like optional extras. Only do that if it makes sense to you. Don't come up with a whole bunch of fake planning if you're not actually going to do it. Now, if you look at that and just want to vomit, let's have a look on the other side of the screen. So you do not have to follow those headings perfectly. What you could do instead is actually answer questions about your source. So we have here a list of 1 to 27 questions. Now, not all 27 questions are applicable to every source, and not all sources will be able to talk about every single thing in here. So what that means is that you might start with question 1, is this source useful to me? And you might say, yes, this source is useful to me. And then goes question 2, how is it useful? Okay, let's talk about how it's useful. But then you might go, actually, it wasn't actually that useful, so maybe I'm going to talk about why it's not that useful as well. And then maybe you get to number 3 and you think, nah, I've already talked about that, I'm not going to do that one. Then you get to 4 and like, man, that's not really that important for this source. Number 5 though, yeah, I really need to talk about that one. So you might pick and choose across the different sources, because you do not need to write one whole page for one source. In fact, we actually kind of discourage it. What we would actually prefer is if you could have a couple of sources per page and a discussion of your thinking across different resources, so that you can really show your development as opposed to just analyzing to death. Okay, because remember, you only got 10 weeks to do this, so you can't spend like 10,000 words on every source. Many of the examples that we show you, just as a side note, often are quite long. That is because we want to show you like the full range of things that you could do, but you could write 200 words or 2,000 words, and as long as you write really well, you could get an A for both. Just writing long doesn't mean good. This is all about quality over quantity, so do not think, oh, I'm going to write like 10 million words in my folio and I'm going to get an A. That's not how it works. If you write 10 million words that don't make sense or are largely irrelevant or are very vague, you're still going to get a C. So please choose your words wisely. So if you're a checklist kind of person, then here's your checklist. This is what you should do. Go and have a look at your source, scan it, copy out the key quotes. Don't use a huge chunk of your page for this. All right? I'd be saying like the maximum on any page that is not your own words is not even a quarter. Highlight your key points. Show us what were the main things you learned in this. What were the things that you actually are addressing in your research, and add your comments. Okay. Make sure that you are referring to your highlighted notes throughout. Make sure that you're telling us your main findings, the key bits that really work for you. Okay. Then you're going to put a source analysis. And if you need to at this point, like if you're saying, I don't know who wrote this, I don't know who this person is, do your background research. Okay. If there's this random man who wrote your article, you need to actually go and find out who this random man is and what his background is and what he does and if that makes him a good source. We do not expect you to know this off the top of your head. That is why they invented Google. So then you need to complete ethics. You need to then go through if there's any questions that you now need to answer. Now, if you put, yes, I still have more questions, you need to actually find the answer to those. You can't just leave them unanswered. Okay, so do use that part wisely. Make sure you have a glossary going. That looks really good and it's going to help you in your outcome. You might need a to-do list or some planning. What are you going to do next? What other sources do you need to find, all right? We want evaluative language and an analytical language. We want usefulness, limitations, similarities, differences, words that allow you to actually explain how this source has helped your research. Okay, a little bit more on reporting your interview. I'm not going to go through this in huge detail, but it can be quite useful if you're thinking, I do not even know what to write about. Here are some questions that you might actually use to help you. So, what was your topic about? Why did you choose it? Why did you choose your participant? How did the interview go? What things maybe needed to change? What were the findings? And then what sort of skills have you developed? So if you need more detail on that, have a read through. A little bit of helpful information here. This comes from the Year 12 Modern History Chief Examiner's report from a few years ago. And what it's effectively talking about is if you have various types of data, they come with usefulness and limitations. Every source is good and bad for some reason. So what you have here is just a summary of some things that you would be thinking about. So for example, if you are doing refugees and you get a speech from a politician delivered in Parliament, you might go, okay, this is cool. I wonder if this is useful for their viewpoint and their official position of their party. But now I need to think about why did they give this speech? How could it have been changed? What might have distorted its message, etc. So do use that as a little bit of a helpful guide if you're getting stuck. I also have here some information about credibility of sources. So this is helping you to determine if this is a really good source. Now, make sure that when you are doing this, that you're actually thinking about using the information to extend yourself. So if you think that this person's good, go find their qualifications. Don't just guess. If they are associated with an institution, find out what this institution does. Find out why this institution is good or bad. Okay. Quick note on academic articles. In particular, if you're getting sources from EBSCOhost or SAGE or any of the uni databases, anything that is a proper peer-reviewed academic journal, that has a very particular purpose and has a very particular set of parameters around it. So generally peer-reviewed stuff can be considered more credible. Do some research into that if you're not sure. Find out who the journal is, what their purpose is, what they allow published. You guys can see here across the page that there's lots of different things. Look at the bibliography. Are they citing Wikipedia? Are they out of date? Are there links there that don't work anymore? Look at the things that are actually making this source useful too. As a bit of a side note, Google Scholar is much better than just normal Google because it only gives you academic resources. On Google as well, in the search tools, you can actually access newspaper archives from Australia, from what's it called when we got founded? When the first issue of the Sydney Morning Herald was published, and in America you can get them back to the Civil War. So you've got hundreds of years of newspapers if you want them. Those sorts of things can come with their own issues, but can also provide credible sources. A bit of a checklist if you're evaluating internet sources, much of the same thing, just trying to think about the motivation, looking at things like the end of the URL. If it's .edu or .gov, that generally has a little bit more credibility because the purpose is generally more honourable, whereas .com is generally trying to sell you something or is a business, so they may be motivated by some sort of commercial means. So you need to just think about that. It doesn't mean you can't use it, but you just got to really critically analyse it. Some more things about bias, credibility, and relevance to help you out there if you need it. I just freeze the screen if you want to keep reading. All right, examples.